Just the volume was all the way up.
Darn it, Ginger. That's very good. Ginger, I was very happy. It
wouldn't have been on the recording, so.
Yeah, I know. Everyone have a nice Labor Day? Yes, we all rested on so.
Okay, so at 6:02, we'll call to order our September 7th, 2021 meeting of the Board of Education. First thing on our agenda is public comments. And I see we have a member of the public joining us virtually. And I just want to say that it is our policy at the Board of Ed not to respond directly to comments offered in public comment, but that if anything is said that needs to be followed up on it, we will absolutely make sure to be in touch afterwards. We also ask that all comments be kept to 5 minutes or less, but we are always eager to hear from anyone in the public. So with that said, Amy, would you like to address the board?
No, I'm just here to watch. Sorry.
Okay. Hi, Amy.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Okay, so next on our agenda is approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of August 25th. We have a little typo on our agenda there, but we just met not too long ago. So we can probably remember those minutes.
We approve the minutes from the special meeting of August.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Great, that motion carries. Okay, next we have correspondence. I did want to mention that I corresponded with the selectman again about the slide. Talking to him about ideas for funding for that slide. He said that he would talk with the board of selectmen about those ideas. They seem to be in general approval of that, and so he's gonna get back to me at what our next steps are. I want to try really hard to stay on top of this, so that, you know, all that stuff. Yeah, exactly, because the delays just keep piling on top of each other. And so I'm just asking all of you to help keep us all honest. I'm saying on that, saying on top of it.
Put off with the silver show.
I also wanted to say, I had the occasion, I don't know, maybe last week, to address the Republican Town Committee. And it was a good opportunity, I thought, to talk to people about the school and what things happening in the school. And I just want to encourage all of our board members to always try to be available in that way and to be able to answer questions and to bring forth any questions we don't know the answer to. Because I feel like those connections to our community really have a really good positive impact, not only on our community, but on our school and its future and the way that it's perceived in the community.
I have a question. I don't know if it's an appropriate time to ask it, but and if it's not, we can put something up. But I had to drive to Norfolk the other day. And actually, I started off in North Canadian and went to Norfolk with my granddaughter shopping. And I can't tell you how many signs I saw to unmask with our children and to call your Board of Education. And I just wonder if any of our board members have had calls in regard to that. I have not personally.
I haven't gotten any calls. I've heard people have asked me, what is the mask status at Norfolk? And I have to say,
at the Republican Party?
I think they probably did. I get so used to answering that question now that I
Right.
feel like
Take it
most
for
people
granted,
ask me
right.
that. I haven't, to be honest, I haven't had anybody come back to me and say they really ought to be blah, 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 and give me their opinion. They just always ask what the, yeah, exactly, what the rules are. I don't know if they're just not asking me because they feel like they know what my opinion is, so they don't want to talk to me about it, or if they're just collecting information, but.
Well, I just wondered if there was an upturn because all the previous signs I'd seen, which I'm sure you've all seen, is unmasked too, but I've never seen call the Board of Education.
Yeah.
And that's why.
Yeah, I am sort of curious, has anybody else received that?
I have quite a bit, and also Lauren answered the questions at her Q&A that she had, but I'm so great, it's on the front page again, about the towns opening, so just to make it clear for everybody what our policies are. And that the governor says until at least the end of September, that everyone's masked. So that kind of makes the conversation mute when it's
Right.
that. Afterwards, no one would speak to, we don't really know. I guess the schools may be determining that when they may extend the mandate. But I have had people reach out to me.
Have they expressed like an opinion one way or another, or is it generally to like fact finding?
Some is fact finding. One was totally on board with doing it, but just sort of disappointed because feeling that the kids have spent the summer outdoors unmasked.
Yeah.
And
so that
and
changed.
so that's
Yeah,
a
I
change.
understand.
But the kids, I don't see any, I don't see any resistance.
Has there been resistance?
No.
Yeah.
Good.
No, the kids are very compliant, they follow the directions and,
Some of them seem to quite enjoy it.
So we haven't had any problems at school.
And it will be interesting to see what the governor is going to do, because along with the mask law, it's mandated up until the 27th, there's also all of the rules around quarantining and close contact. And right now, for students in a classroom, if they are masked and 3 feet or more apart, and they're a close contact, they don't need to quarantine. So that means that more of our kids will be in school and won't have to do quarantine. So if they do something with the mask to, relax that rule or make it the board decision policy or something, we would want to look at what that close contact definition is, because it really is helping to make sure that our kids can stay in school with their close contact. You can recall last year, many times we had to, classrooms or, did not, because it was the 6 feet and it was a mandate that they were close contact, not to mention hours and hours of doing the search to see who's actually close contact. So it's a whole package, and as of today, we've not heard anything in terms of even the rumors about whether it's going to be extended, whether it's going to be revised. But as it stands now, the Executive Order 13D that is still in place, total disconnect with what they're saying we have to do and the FAQs that they put out and what they're doing in terms of practice. So they are saying they anticipate that we get, a revised executive order. So we're all just waiting to see, but it's been very quiet.
I did have the question asked of me, if kids or classrooms need to quarantine, will we be hosting a remote learning session?
And that would be about the only time we would do remote. Children are quarantined because of a contact at home and they must quarantine. Or if there was a case where we had to, quarantine a class, it was maybe an adult or something, then we would go and offer remote learning. It is no longer an opt-in to quarantine. That's off the table. And the other thing that's off the table is we are not allowed to use remote learning on weather days to count as a school day. So our snow days will be snow days.
Is that an order?
You said it's January, though, right? It might change.
It might change, but right now they're saying remote is not an option for families, and we can't use them as weather days. we can use them in the, okay, in the event there's an IEP or a 504 plan that determines a particular child must have remote instruction, or if we've deemed a child that, because of the, conditions has to quarantine, we have the prerogative of offering, and we will absolutely offer remote because of quarantine.
They're in the process of sending out with the newsletter, some FAQs that kind of touch base on, what we discussed at the meeting and other, just general protocols, as well as an updated screening and what to do if you have symptoms, kind of flow chart, what to do if you think you're positive, flow chart. So like we used that screening tool last year, and we're in the process of, updating that and sending that out to folks. So everybody's a little bit more clear again on what, because there are some changes, so it's important to know that.
The other thing that is a big question mark for us, I met with the bus companies last week, maybe it was this last week. And the way things are now, the bus drivers statewide and all of the bus providers in our area, not just the ones, not just All-Star, 40 to 50% of the bus drivers have said, I will not get a vaccination and I will not be tested. And so right now, there has always for a long time been a shortage of bus drivers. Now, unless they clear some of the bottlenecks that the DMV has, where even people who have been trained and are trying to get licensed, there's weeks and weeks wait. So they have no drivers that they can hire. And currently, we have one driver in Norfolk. So we have 3 vehicles, and right now we are only assured that there's one driver after the 27th. So something's got to give, because they cannot say that we absolutely must have kids in person full time. But sorry, people, we're not going to be able to get them there. And I really think they've asked for exemptions, and when you think about it, if the kids are all masked and the bus driver's masked, even if they said the first 2 seats wouldn't be filled, they'd be masked and more than 6 feet apart. So they're hoping they're all facing one direction and not, they pass the bus driver, but if there's not some kind of an exemption or some kind of a change in the rule, we may be looking at every child in Norfolk is going to be picked up by one bus, which will have a huge impact. So, I don't want people to get hysterical because that's not the case, until after the 27th, then we're hoping something changes between now and then, but
we need to know.
Yeah, it's been many days before the 27th.
No,
So, I suppose, is there, at what point do you need to make an emergency plan of what we'll do?
Well, John DeFore has promised that as soon as humanly possible, and he was hoping that by the end of this week, haven't heard anything from him, they would tell us what our options are. And they may be options that are, really terrible options, but at some point, we all said that we need to drop dead date so that we can tell parents, here's the plan. We would need new bus routes if we're going to have, less than the buses that we voted on just last meeting 2 weeks ago. But again, it's frustrating because, everybody's anticipating clarification, anticipating answers, and there's just more unknown than known. And, you would have thought before they made things a law that they would have anticipated some of the questions and had some of the clarification. We're still waiting on language to clarify what a religious exemption would be. They're referring us to the federal guidelines for medical exemptions. But at this point, as long, in any case, exemption or opting out, people would have to be tested every week. They're still saying that Board of Eds are not responsible for arranging for the testing or paying for the testing. The individual would be responsible for getting the test and bringing proof of the test and the results to their employer every week, which will be a big burden on folks.
$200 for the test.
And
And
insurance,
insurance doesn't cover the voluntary. A friend of mine in Southern Connecticut, their schools had to go on a staggered schedule because they're so short. So, on bus drivers. So the buses pretty much ran all day for picking up kids. Every, for like 4 hours and then dropping them off. It was the first 2 weeks of school was really enough.
What percentage of bus drivers are not vaccinated?
Of bus drivers, we currently have, if we had 3 buses and it's 30% because we have 1 out of 3 that's vaccinated, and one I understand is moving, and the other is saying, that they're not going to get vaccinated and they're not going to get tested. They would lose their job if that's what the case.
They're not even going to get tested.
They would have to agree to be tested every week,
And they're saying
they
they won't agree to it.
which is expensive and
Yeah.
labor intensive, so it's a big question mark, but I will certainly let you know as soon as I hear anything.
The numbers aren't getting better.
And I'm not sure where we would be priority wise. Region 7, in total, Colebrook, Region 7, Middle High School, and Norfolk, between the 3 of us that use All-Star, they're down 9 buses. Colebrook's down 1, we're down 2, and then we're down 7 at Region. So, if you know anybody in Norfolk who wants to drive the bus, we'll be hiring opportunities, but well, John before said that our next contract, which is, well, we're in year 2 of a 5-year contract now, right, Kathy? So we've got 3 years, but all these new contracts, bus drivers will be paid $30 an hour, which means that that's going to be an impact on our transportation. No, I don't. And yet it happens, but $30 an hour, and they have to guarantee them at least 6 hours a day. 4 or 6. And they're guaranteed X number of hours of $30 an hour, so, they're already, they talked about sign-on bonuses that has not gone into effect, but I know, but, there was one superintendent was saying, well, if in our budget, we can offer people, an extra $1,000 if they get vaccinated. And before I said, yeah, well, you knock yourself out, but good luck, because that's gonna open a whole can of worms, the people who are already vaccinated are gonna say, well, fucking, I don't get $1,000.
Right.
So I don't know if that will apply, but people are starting to get really creative, trying to figure out how to get bus drivers to transport kids, so I'll keep you in the loop.
Just going to that.
Okay. Well, so I think we kind of led between correspondence and superintendent's report. But was moving on to the superintendent's report. Were there other things superintendent?
Well, I just want to clarify, in your packet, you'll notice that the current board goals, they're not the current board goals. As a matter of fact, I made copies of the current board goals, and I posted them on your bulletin board. But these are the goals that we are currently using to craft our administrative goals and align with our teacher goals and SLOs. And there's strong alignment with, particularly with curriculum, your number 1 goal. And curriculum, we think of as, there's the written curriculum, the implemented curriculum, and the assessed curriculum. And so, we are looking in terms of teaching and learning as our top priority as well. And to have real high quality teaching and learning that goes hand in hand with having high quality teachers. So our first 2 goals will continue to be a focus on rigorous curriculum, making sure that it's implemented with fidelity, and that we are constantly asking the question of, have our kids learned what we plan for them to learn? How do we know? How do our assessments confirm that kids are succeeding and meeting the learning objectives that teachers put in place? We have a very comprehensive teacher evaluation model. The last 2 years, the state suspended it, but this year we are back on track for the formal evaluation. And in terms of, our climate and culture, primarily for our goal purposes, is around social emotional learning. And we continue to make that a very strong focus as well. And of course, the operations and systems have to be in place in terms of keeping kids safe, keeping the building open, keeping the conditions optimal and conducive to learning. So we're in the process now of teachers meeting with the principals to establish their goals, come up with a school-wide focus, and look at all the survey data in terms of coming up with just school-wide goals relative to family engagement and, being connected with the community. So just wanted to clarify that. As I said, I'm in hours and hours every week with the State Department of Education, the Connecticut Department of Health, local area superintendents meet on a regular basis to try to be sure that we're all on top of what the latest is and to try to make sure that there's continuity in terms of interpretation and implementation so that we don't have boards or districts, at odds saying, well, this district is doing this and saying this, but you're doing this and saying that. So there's strong communication and, like I said, information has been slow and scarce, but we've got our ear to the ground. And then Cape Convention, up until September 15th, we get the early bird discount. So anyone planning, it's only going to be the one day this year, Friday the 15th, I think. 15th, 17th of November. Anyway, if you're interested, let us know. The 15th, 17th. We will be happy to register you. There is money in the budget to pay for Board of Ed registration for Cape. The only other thing I wanted to share with you is in terms of the playground. We have some swings, handicap swings, and some of the pieces were broken. Parts have been ordered. They're awaiting shipment and they'll be fixed as soon as we get those parts. So the slide continues to be a commission, so hopefully Matt will just because there should be funds there and it really is at a standstill right now. I don't think there's any, it's just waiting. We got the invoice. And to fix it, but I don't know what the trigger is to set it all in motion.
Somewhere, maybe we should start a work campaign.
Well, I know we talked last month about an ad hoc committee, getting together with people from the community, economic development, the selectmen's office, so that you've got all the people sitting at the table and making sure that we know what the plan is.
Not to come back with this before we step in front of it.
Yeah. Well, so I did talk to him about that idea of starting a committee, and he said, let me look and see what I can figure out.
Right, so let's wait.
I just, I'm gonna try to go back to him each week. That's gonna be my.
Right.
And say, how's it look?
I called the selectmen's office, so it's just for me. But a question so from them, they needed for the, nothing to do with school board, nothing to do with the sewer district. And I remember for sure until first one, and I'm not bragging about anything, I'm not bragging, I'm not questioning about what he's doing, I just needed to tell him.
I had a question that came to my mind while you were speaking. Evaluations, you said, you mentioned how they've been kind of on hold for the last couple of years, and they're back on track. So those are teacher evaluations that we're talking about, right? And then what about like the state testing and all those things? Because I've had some people ask me about like, how is our ranking? How are we ranking? And so, well, we stop testing everything. So.
In October, we will give you an assessment presentation. We're working on that, but I can tell you that we're just this week, we got from the State Department, from the assessor's office, a full report, and they are not going to be rating anybody. This year of testing was as different as the last year was in terms of teaching. It wasn't a normal year. And they had to break out kids who were tested remotely, kids who were tested in school. But some of the highlights, and they're only going to be recording high-level kinds of things, but some of the main points that the assessment report talks about is that, and I don't have it with me, I have it sitting in my office. Kids who were in school full-time did not fall behind nearly as much as kids who were in a hybrid situation. And hybrid kids did better than kids who were in a fully remote situation. And I'll have those statistics for you too, but if they break it down into the number of districts that were fully in person, at least 75% of the time in person, the number of districts that were hybrid and the number of districts that were remote. Across the board, everyone lost ground. However, kids who were in school in person didn't lose as much ground. ELA, we lost, the progression was not as much as the math across the state really was significantly impacted more than ELA. They went back and they looked at 2 year ago test results for grade 5. For our purposes, that would be the only, 5, 6 would be, years that we could go back to 2 years ago, which wouldn't, so they wouldn't have been tested. As a cohort across the state, the cohort this last year did not show as much growth as the cohorts previously. And that helped show, I think, across all categories of, kids who were special needs, kids who were English language learners. There was just not the growth that we saw pre-pandemic. So we're looking at, they're not comparing our schools. I haven't seen any results. Typically, I have eyes, I can go in and see every other district, and I can tell you what Colebrook and Buckinghamshire, they're not sharing that data, at least not now. They're looking at very high level kind of results because if they don't have consecutive years for our kids who have been in 3rd and 4th grade, 6th grade this year. And they really are being very careful about conclusions that they jump to because it was just such a unique testing year. And within the testing cohort, as I said, there were kids who tested remotely, kids who tested in person, kids who tested in person who learned mostly remotely, kids who tested remotely who were in a hybrid. And it's such a jumble of trying to figure it all out.
And not
There's
just
no way.
for us, not just for Connecticut, across the land.
So they will not be reporting, you won't see in the press, like in old CMT days, blah, 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 districts rated, and they're not going to be giving districts rating 1, 2, 3, as we've seen in the for a couple of years.
But they have been giving general information. If you are
We know how our
standing
kids did, we
with
have our
it.
kids scores, and for our 6th and 5th graders, we have, we can do look back to the previous test was. But even growth targets, because we missed the 2 years, it's been really difficult to do what we were able to do in the past. So we'll give you what we have, but it's again going to be very general because we can't do a whole lot of comparing. And we certainly have to be careful what we report because our numbers are so low, but we can give you grade level data and we can look at the.
You mean because the children are.
The children are-
So well, they
Yeah.
only get out
Right.
specific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that will be packaged along with, our other assessments as well in the last years before the one was broken out. Here's some of the stuff, here's the benchmark assessments that we give. And we look at both in, more than just the SBAC, but right now we really don't have, the SBAC results are not giving us a whole lot of information, comparative information. So in terms of how we did compared to our neighbors, we should be able to see how we did compared to state averages. I believe they're going to publish some of the state averages in terms of hard numbers because the number's big enough to do that. But there won't be any rating. And I'm not sure, maybe by next year we'll be able to go back and do that. But they're holding, the ratings are kind of just staying where they were pre-pandemic until they have enough information to what new ratings might be.
And the student test results just arrived last week and they'll be going on this week with a letter that, talks about what we do with the results. So parents can expect to this week. What we did next week. Depending on how the mail goes.
And the mail is going slow.
And so in October, we'll have an assessment presentation. Great, okay. Thank you. That's a great answer. Okay. Were you all done?
Any questions for me? Any questions about the bills? Any questions about anything else? Hopefully, we have a job with the bills. Thank goodness for Kathy. She's what she does.
Good question. It's not- This company can't get drivers, is there like a breach of contract or something?
We would get reimbursed for the drivers that were currently on contract, so I don't think we would have any case like to sue them because there's nothing that they can do beyond their control, but we will have a monetary reimbursement.
Did we get 67% of our?
We should.
Because I'm so good at math.
I hesitate to say it would be that, because when you look at the COVID year, when we had to pay, districts had to pay, kids weren't in school because they gave us a little bit back from that March to June. But by law, we had to cover a percentage of all, even though they weren't putting gas in the tanks, they weren't running the buses, we had to pay a significant amount because they didn't want the businesses to go under.
That was paying people through at that time.
Right.
And
So it
the
doesn't
hardship
apply.
was we
Right.
were forcing the you
Yeah.
as opposed to recalcitrant.
Yeah, it was decided not to get it back home. Right.
Well, and, because that's beyond the bus company's control, I'm just thinking, if bus companies, they're all in the same boat, if they were all required to reimburse to that extent, like 2/3, we wouldn't have any buses because they would all go out of business. So my guess is that there will be things put in place to keep the bus companies as they are from going under and making a bad situation even worse. But John did say we would see significant reimbursement if they couldn't get the drivers and run all of the buses.
John is the person who owns the bus company.
The DeFores owned All Star, and then they were kind of brought into this bigger company. So they still operate pretty much as a small entity, but I'm not sure how that impacts the whole ownership. He's president, owner, but it's part of a bigger consortium. But he would be the main voice for the bus company, and he was at the meeting himself, and again, really frustrated because they have been doing everything they possibly can do, offering incentives, trying to support bus drivers,
He's gonna meet him in dark alleys and just stab him.
Right. It's like, but what can you do when they say, no, I will not be vaccinated, I'll give up my job?
And the
as
people
opposed
that
to-
are not getting vaccinated are sitting right to the wall about it. I mean, I have neighbors that don't, there's no way they.
And we're still waiting to see too, and I think some people are waiting because they're saying, okay, our current law is going to expire on September 31st, so maybe I don't have to do anything. I've had private conversations with all of our staff who are not vaccinated, and I've asked them, to please keep me informed, because if it's their intent not to be vaccinated and not to opt into testing, I respect their decision, but I would need to know as soon as possible, because we would have to replace them if in fact the law says that we're starting to move on that too. The executive order and initially was very clear after September 27th, they couldn't work here if they didn't do that. Now, they're saying, well, consult with your attorney and contract and labor law, so it's coming back on us, but I'm not sure if the people who currently have, I can't speak for all of them, I can't say that all of them will opt to do the weekly testing if they don't get vaccinated. We may have an employee or two who say, you know what, it's not worth it, we'll play on it. So,
So does that mean that you have posted those jobs? Like, how would that, because it would be a quick turnaround.
So, right, I'd asked them to let me know as soon as they possibly could, as soon as they made a decision, and they said that they would.
How many do we know still?
James, we have 5. We do have one very solid medical exemption, and we're waiting on the others to see what their decision is going to be. But I can't postpone people I know that we will terminate them, and I don't know if, how much they will backpedal on that, you know, up until September 27th, any new hires, you can hire a non-vaccinated person if they agree to testing. And initially, it was after September 27th, you could not hire anybody who was not vaccinated, and they're starting to walk a little bit on that too. But we don't anticipate, you know, new hires, and certainly if we lost a position because the person wasn't vaccinated and refused to get vaccinated and refused to opt into testing, we will be looking very carefully at vaccination status and the people. And that could certainly, we might need to do an emergency policy that says, you know, this Board of Education will not hire people who have not, you know, been fully vaccinated. And then once we get that all settled out, then we can try to figure out what the next course is going to be, because if then they require everyone to get boosters, then we have to, you know, can figure that out. But we'll take it one day at a time, and we can't force people to do anything, and I do think, you know, we have to respect people's choice, and I just am hopeful that they respect our position and will be as communicative as possible so that we can avoid any gaps in terms of, you know, positions that might have to be filled.
Thanks for answering my question.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the principal's report. Oh,
Sorry, in expanded budget.
Yeah.
In section 2600, the building repairs,
Let me find- let me see.
page 4.
Okay. So which one?
So the seven line down.
What number was it again?
In section 2600, operations and maintenance of facility.
Building repairs, again, 37, I'm right at $37,000.
So yeah, I was curious what the 2278 has been. Is there something big?
The intercom system was almost about 16,000.
Okay.
And I'm not sure the rest of the time.
So
That was why we went up to 36,000 from the building repairs, because we had the intercom system.
And was it the cameras? No. Oh, it was the intercom and the alarm system.
Oh, yeah, the alarm system.
Oh, the virtual ones.
Yeah, 2,200 for the alarm, and there was a couple other Pilates has been here, there's been a couple.
And right now, we're working on getting a quote for the gym lighting. We've got several lights that are out. They need to be replaced with the LED lights. They need a lift or scaffolding in order to replace them. We're trying to coordinate with the electrician and with John and with somebody else, the alarm company, so that once we get that scaffolding in place, everybody can get done what they need to do. And we're waiting on the quote because once we get all that structure there to change the lights, if we can afford to do it, it would make sense to swap out all of the lights with the LED lights that will last forever, because otherwise, every other week, the light's gonna go, and we're gonna be up and forth, up and down, back and forth, changing light bulbs. So we're waiting for the quote to see what that would be, to change them all out. And
Just make sure they're not like way too bright. Please. You know how those LEDs would just be very
jarring.
yeah.
You can turn off individual lights. It's a private stage. But it would be.
Like it's good to see, but honey, it's too dark. Yeah, it is dark in there right now.
So I'm sure any LEDs are gonna make it look great.
they don't have to have all the lights turned on at once.
Okay.
You can have banks of them that are shut down, so that might help.
And that's one code temperature, now 3,000. Oh,
And what is that we want to ask for?
A warmer color temperature around 3,000 Kelvin, 3,000 K.
Rather than the cool blue.
So this, so would, is that like, at that moment, you're gonna adjust those lights?
Yeah, so when scaffolding. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Sure is.
Okay. Okay, we ready for the principal's report?
Well, it hasn't been long since we've met last, so school opened smoothly. Our pre-Kers are coming for the bus ride to school on Thursday, with their parents on the bus that they will typically ride. And yeah, it's very exciting. And they'll be here for about an hour. We have the ice cream social on Friday. I don't know that I mentioned this last meeting, but the Norfolk Volunteer Fire Department is holding a 9/11 ceremony on Saturday. And they've invited our students to participate. So Ms. Kleisner has practiced 3 songs with our students. And we will be performing in the ceremony beginning at 8:30, if you can attend. There was conflict with the 3rd and 4th grade and 5th and 6th grade soccer games, which was going to eliminate probably 67% of our student body. That was a little frightening, but they have since rearranged the soccer schedule, and we can anticipate more students being able to attend. So we're really.
What time is that again?
I think it begins at 8:30. So we're looking forward to attending and participating. And the pre-K's first day of school is next Tuesday, and we have open house scheduled for parents on the 22nd at 6 p.m. We have 70 students, and all is well.
I just want to say that I feel really badly because that 9/11 ceremony is something that I think your superintendent should be there. I would absolutely
And
be
as
there,
many of us as
and I
possible.
can't be there. I have a family engagement that there's no way I can get out of it, so I apologize for not being there and representing both our schools, but I'll be there in spirit.
When the people, the pre-K parents and kids come in Thursday,
Mhm.
can you let them know about the ice cream social?
Yes.
Make sure that they get flyer.
Yes, I will make sure that we do that.
They could also have there's a flyer about the first PTO meeting, which is going to be next Monday.
Sure.
But it's not really the best, too.
Anybody have any questions?
And the ceremony is here.
No, it's at the, yes, at the fire department, yes.
Do we have some, how old are kids in 6th grade? Do they ever travel?
Hold on.
Usually,
Some of them turn 12 before the end of the year, but
Right.
So if, so if 12-year-olds can be vaccinated, is that something they should, if they do get vaccinated, if they report that to the school and there's some sort of need to quarantine, would they be in a different kind of category?
Yes. And the nurse and I have spoken about that. We don't have any students yet who are 12, but that she knows to, look at that and be aware and inform parents of, about the vaccine and the quarantine rules if they are vaccinated. So
that's when she contacted all of the parents of our 12-year-olds to make sure they can get testing place for it, and we offered to make sure that knows that they're doing that, that they're not. She's the kid that was raised when they turned 12 this year, so she's definitely.
Yeah, and like we sent her, a copy of the card. She was like this first kid, I think. I'm not sure. So it'd be good if they did get vaccinated. To let them know.
Yep.
And the second shot first. during the school year. We anticipate.
Right.
Yeah, because sure, the younger you are, the more sick you tend to
Mhm.
be.
I'm very much like, no day off. You rest over the weekend.
I made my kids go play soccer the next day, so I was like, mom of the year. Don't hit me hard.
Drink more water.
We scheduled our teacher clinics on Fridays, and I think the second shot was Good Friday, so they had their second shot before the long weekend.
Yeah.
And really, a couple of them did get sick, but all in all, it wasn't horrible, but.
Yeah. Can't tell. I thought it was such a weird thing. I was not horribly sick, but got a fever. But that lasted 24 hours or whatever it was, or 12. It was a very set amount of time. It was funny to feel sick, knowing it was going to end and what made you sick. It was a very strange feeling. I don't know.
And some people got the first 2 shots and
Yeah,
had
no,
no problem,
yeah.
and they got the booster and were sick for 3 days.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's not really happened to a friend of mine, yeah.
Moving to our standing committees. Now, as we've said several times, it's not been very long since we met. And everything has just started. So I don't really think that we have any standing committee business to talk about. Other than, I don't think you were in the room when we talked about this, Lauren, but for the curriculum and technology meeting, if you could help us to schedule that one sometime in the next couple of weeks, when it makes sense for the teachers involved in that committee. I'd like to catch up on that one.
Okay.
Also, I wanted to just show, this was a pamphlet that we worked on several years ago. Now you can tell it was as like baby Lorelei in it, in 5th grade. That talked about enrichment opportunities at the school. So I'm just gonna pass it around, just to get people again thinking about what we want our pamphlet to say and to look like. I think this would be a good year to build these pamphlets and to maybe just to spruce up our website again, get things kind of freshened up. So that's that around. If anybody has any ideas,
There's the last 2 weeks, there are a lot more affordable houses on the market. Because I get that updates when things get listed. So more houses, I would say, under. 100,000. They're not big, but, you know, that's more of a family size, sort of, yeah.
yeah, okay, great. Well, I just.
And I found another, I'm sorry, I don't have my computer, but I found an old, like, so I know that EDC and everybody's talking about doing something, and I found a booklet that was made a couple years ago. But it was PDF. And I was like, oh, it really wasn't that long ago. Yeah, I have it, it's on my computer, I haven't sent it to you.
Yeah, I'd love to, we should set a meeting for our communications committee. Because if there's a meeting on the date, then I'll need to stay focused, and maybe I can make something for us to look at.
Next Tuesday, right? That's, I think it's already on the
It's
calendar.
already on the calendar.
Yeah, it's already on.
Okay.
Yeah, 6 o'clock.
Yeah, so, so I'm gonna look to have a brochure mocked up. So we have like some great ideas and contents, but it should be short little things. Like a brochure does not have a lot of contents, right?
Right.
And so, like, I started to look at something already
Yeah.
and thought we could, talk about SOAR, what it stands for, just like broad strokes. Have 3, 4 sentences and that kind of thing I'd like to share. Yeah. I must. I heard of that, so I must have. Yeah, it's funny to look at pictures of the kids.
Yeah.
It's like, baby Gudrun, baby Barry, he's on there.
Yeah, Carly's in high school.
Carly's in 10th grade now. She's like a good 6 inches taller than me.
I don't know, this is Yeah, so next Tuesday at 6 is okay. Where do you wanna meet here, or you wanna meet, if it's the three of us, you can.
Maybe at my house would be better.
Or we can, you wanna
I
do
can have my
it?
laptop. Or, yeah, let's talk, let's talk about it on Monday.
Okay.
What's best for you guys?
I'm totally flexible.
Um, so I think the other, unless I'm missing something that someone wants to report, I think all of our other committees are up to date on. As I mentioned, our first PTO meeting of the year will be next Monday at 6 o'clock
In the cafeteria,
in the cafeteria.
or in the covered playground area, where do you wanna go?
On my flyer, I said the cafeteria. I figured if it was beautiful weather, once people get there, we could move over, but just in case. Um,
For the PTO, the class of 2022, the sixth grade is getting their fundraising stuff. I sent them what I had and wish them the best.
And you were happy to.
I was very happy to do that. So the last class, we did the handprints on the wall, they got their yearbooks, I'm totally done, that book is cleared. We left the incoming graduating class with $560.
Oh, nice.
We had 500 coming in, so we know about it too. And they are collecting clean recyclables, so if you have any from the public, email pcl@schools.org and we'll get someone, or they come pick it up if it's clean, right? And then, everybody's really doing a good job on that. And the kids fundraiser is going out this Thursday, Friday, right? The first round of. The We Believe one. Yeah, so that's coming up, so look after that.
Is it recyclables or returnables?
Oh, sorry, returnables.
Okay,
Thank
because
you
I,
for the clarification.
interchange them all the time, so that's why I was like, wait a minute. I'm writing recyclables, but I think.
Yeah, the 5-cent returnables, yes, preferably clean, not full of. Grossness.
Please do all come to the ice cream social. This year, we are going to give out packaged treats as a little nod to COVID, rather than scooping ice cream, as we decided to do that. But it's still fun. It's still be a nice night out in the field.
And what time is it?
5 o'clock on September 10th. Okay.
Yes, it says 11th, or 10th.
Okay, unfinished business. Oh, the Board of Ed luncheon?
So this first, or the second teacher day, convocation day, we did what we've done the last 3 days and thanks to the Board of Education, we provided teacher lunches, and this year, like last year, Heidi made them up individual teachers over there at a time. So thank you on behalf of the teachers for providing lunch that day. I know at the last meeting, we talked about maybe doing something a little bit different that someone has some ideas about. So Kathy just said that was to do, right? So, you know, if it's gonna change for next year, that is good.
Well, we want to do a luncheon where the board members go.
Yes, absolutely.
So we can kind of.
That's what we did for many years.
What time of year was that?
Right at the opening of schools.
Oh, so they're, yeah.
Right,
So
so
you have
in other words, if there
lunch
were new staff members, you could meet if there were new, you know.
Okay, so maybe, I know this is a long way in the future, right, I obviously won't remember, but if somebody else remembers that for next year.
You can tell us and give us a few months' notice so we can plan accordingly, food, beverage, etc.
So sometime around maybe the May Board of Ed meeting, put it on our
Right.
business, and then
children with professional development the first few days of the last week in August. When the kids weren't here.
Yeah.
So they didn't-
Yeah, that would be nice, to everybody, meet everybody and.
Yes.
Well, that's what it was always intended to be. But we had a few rough years with negotiations. That sort of, this was the best year personnel committees ever had. Almost a pleasant. And am I just describing that correctly? It was very, very, it was, and we've been sometimes up almost all night in a very acrimonious.
Well, even if
situation.
we have a bad one in the future, I think we should still.
Right, I do too. I'm all for it. That's exactly what I think we should do.
Okay, so then on to new business.
Thank you for bringing it in.
If no one has anything to bring up there, and I don't think we have anything on our consent agenda, I think we are ready for our motion to adjourn.
I move with the motion to adjourn.
Can't forget anything, you did it in under an hour.
I'll give you an award. How's that?
All right, thanks, Amy, if you can hear us.